Hello, everybody. Let me know if you guys are able to hear me okay. Just getting started here. There's a few of you guys already on. Can everyone hear me? Hello, Amy. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. I literally had to just call a friend to do a little moral support where my brain just kind of stopped. I'm like, how do I go live? Anyway, I got it figured out, and so I'm glad that you guys are with me. So once a month on the second Wednesday of each month, I'm planning on doing a live Q&A just as we're going to do here. The intention of this is to give you guys the opportunity to ask me any questions, metaphysically, spiritually, anything related to crystals that you might have. During this, I'm not going to be answering personal questions, whether that be about myself or for you guys. I'm not doing this for individual readings. I just really kind of want to make myself available to help you guys with guidance on your spiritual journey. So ground rules, I don't really want to answer any questions about politics. I know with the election coming up, it's kind of a hot topic. However, we all have intuitive insight, but we also have an opinion. And so we're going to try to dodge that bullet if we can. However, if you guys have questions, feel free to start. I got the comment bar posted up here. I will kind of try to bounce back and forth. While you guys are working on questions, I just kind of want to talk. I've had multiple people in the last few weeks reach out talking about the same thing. And I find it interesting because over the last few years, it's not a topic that I have heard much on, but I keep hearing about nightmares, visions, premonitions, deja vu. So just to I got a lot of questions and a couple people reached out today. So I'm like, you know what? If I got these guys going through similar things, some of you guys might be going through stuff as well. So when it comes to having the visions, whether it seems almost dissociative or literally in a dream state, or while you're driving, I call that highway hypnosis. It's all coming from your third eye. And with everybody kind of going through their spiritual awakening, everyone's chakras are getting blown open. They're opening, they're tapping into psychic abilities that they haven't necessarily experienced. And those of you who are experiencing or learning to see, it's going to kind of come into your mind as like a flood of images. And I just kind of want to like, if I had a deck of cards, I would kind of show you. People continue to tell me that what they are seeing is almost like this, a flash of images, but they're so fast that they can't actually make out what each one is. And so what I'm telling people is set the intention. As you're open, your guides could literally be trying to show you all different stuff at once. So if you're able to set an intention on what you would like to see or what that you want them to show you, people are having better luck having images that are more distinct. It's not just like this kind of flood of images. Let's see, Brianne, what is a good stone for child for nightmares? So I'm going to go from this a couple different directions. Let me ask you, Brianne, if you think that your children are also extremely intuitive, energetically sensitive, because if it is fear-based, I'm going to go one direction. If you think it's more spiritual in nature, I'm going to go a different direction. If it's more spiritual, what I like to do for myself is I keep black tourmaline and hematite under my mattress, between the mattress and the box spring. What that does for me is it helps keep me grounded while I'm sleeping so that I don't have spirits from a neighbor or people passing through try to come to me in a dream state. It's like I have enough spiritual experiences as I'm awake that when I'm asleep, I want to sleep. So I really like the hematite and the black tourmaline to kind of help keep me grounded. They're also very protective. So if you don't really know if it's good energy, bad energy, we're going to go the protective route. When you mention for more fear, when it's nightmares and insomnia, I'm going to recommend, it's called White Howlite. It's Howlite. That is my go-to for any children to adults that are having regular nightmares, sleep disturbances, or insomnia. What you can do there is literally put the piece under the pillow. You can have a piece next to a nightstand. I wouldn't recommend sleeping wearing the bracelets because I've had people just talk about how they break or they wake up and they're gone. So when it comes to sleep, that's really, there's a few others that you could probably explore, but if you haven't tried the White Howlite, I would go that direction. Depending on the age, I would also encourage you, Brianne, to look into dream catchers. If you let your children or child that's having issues with the nightmares pick one out, you can tell them that this is going to help trap or keep in the nightmares to where it's kind of like a protective barrier. If you let them pick it out, there's a lot more faith behind it, where if they're gifted, I've kind of seen like hit and miss. So that's one thing that you could try. You've already got the dream catcher, so try the Howlite. One thing that you can do as a mom, if you're kind of like at wit's end, when it comes to the bedroom, I talk so much with my hands and I realize you guys can't really see those. When it comes to the bedroom, make sure that her bed is not in a corner. If you have her bed placed in the corner of her room, it's like energy just kind of seems to get stuck in corners. I would totally move it to where you can at least walk around 3 sides of the bed. That kind of helps keep things flowing so that when you do cleanse or sage, it's a little bit more effective, in my opinion, that way. If you haven't tried smudging, cleansing, that's another route that you could do. Last or worst case scenario, you can call on God, angel, spirit guides, archangels, Michael for protection. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, but to kind of answer your question with crystals, I would totally try the White Howlite and see where that gets you. So moving on, Carol. I've been seeing red numbers and have had a couple faces flash by. This happens when I've been kind of woken up, or I think I've kind of been woken up. What's going on? So let me ask Carol, if you think, is it more in a dream state, kind of dissociative, where you kind of check out, you're just kind of in la land? When it comes to faces, I get the feeling that you'd probably be getting or seeing your spirit guides. As busy as you are and as many projects as you're working on, they're helping you. They're making things kind of organized. As far as seeing the red numbers, red to me always catches my attention. Some people think red represents anger. For me personally, it represents being grounded, safety, security. I would pay more attention to what the actual number is, because if you're seeing the same number and it's red, there's going to be a message. I think the red could be just bold enough that it catches your eye. It's going to stand out easier than it would if it was just like the triple-digit black numbers. That's what I would say, but it's kind of hard to tell with the red. That doesn't really throw me off, but when it comes to the faces, if it's not anybody that you recognize and you don't feel fearful, it's got to be something either tied to you or probably images of your spirit guides. Chelsea, before bed, what route should I use to pursue healing? And they said Reiki, run with that. So when it comes to Reiki, Chelsea, have you, once it kind of breaks down, I'm not sure if I'll be able to actually bounce back and forth. When it comes to Reiki, a lot of people, after either an attunement or after an energy session, they're going to sleep better. You are either going to be kind of on cloud 9 or literally like tired and lethargic. It's a cleansing process. And so literally I've heard of people like shitting water an hour later or having completely the other issue. Everybody's body is going to respond to it differently. But as far as before bed, what I always ask, if you're looking for healing, is if you want some kind of ritual, either do like bath time to kind of help relax, I would try to put out to your guides what healing you're looking for. Don't be so generic about it, because they might send you stuff for one healing when you're talking about a different issue. So be very specific when asking for help. Send me guidance, show me the tools that will help me with this problem specifically. Stones for fertility. All right, Mary, there's a few different ways that I'll go about this. So whether it's male issue, female issue, anytime I'm working with a couple who is struggling with fertility, there's a handful of stones that I'm going to go for. The most popular is going to be the carnelian. It's kind of a orangish reddish. It's a type of agate. There's banded carnelian with like white stripes. There's a really cool variety that comes from Madagascar. Either way, that helps bring the sacral chakra back in check. So at this point, it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to know why it's out of whack. It's just if we're having issues, that's the first thing that we're going to go for. If you are going through fertility treatments, if you're doing in vitro, anything like that, then I would recommend, it's called Turritella agate, which it's actually not even an agate. It's they're fossils, little snail fossils in kind of like a brown matrix. So when it was initially found, it was misidentified, labeled as an agate, and the name stuck with it. So it's technically a fossil. But that I've seen kind of, what that one does specifically is if you have issues that have thrown the physical body so far out of whack, it's known to kind of help bring the body back further. You can also do orange calcite, which is a really good one for physical creativity. But if you're also struggling as an artist, that's what I would go for. The oranges are wonderful for creativity. So if you were to shop for crystals, if it was for you that you were asking for, I would totally think about what colors you're actually drawn to. I might think I know what's best for you, but as an animal, you're always going to be very drawn to exactly what's going to provide you the balance. So there's a couple there that I would look into, see what happens, go from there. Jackie, Mercury causing ringing and dizziness. So what's really interesting is yesterday specifically, first day of retrograde, I had a headache. Other people I know had a headache. I saw people post about joint pain, joint stiffness, fibro flare-ups, and I'm like, okay, yes, this might have part to do with some of the retrogrades, but it's also earth energy. The energy has been so wonky right now to where, yes, we're having all these internet Wi-Fi problems at work, but I've been having similar issues at home since I got home from work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, please tonight, do not like mess with my internet. Do not disconnect my signal. During the retrogrades, a lot of stuff with electronics seems to malfunction. I know people who, the last 2 times you've had a Mercury retrograde, my check engine light comes on. There's nothing wrong with my car. So I'm expecting that in the next month, I'm going to have the light pop on. And this time I'm not going to panic because I already know my car is fine. So if this type of energy can mess with your electronics, your emotional state, it wouldn't surprise me if it's going to be more contributing to the ringing of your ears and being kind of off kilter or feeling dizzy. What I do want to ask Jackie is if it's both ears. If you have both ears ringing, then that's going to be more environmental. If you've got one or the other, chances are you've got more of a spirit that's coming around, and because they vibrate at a higher frequency than we do, it's often heard as a higher pitched noise or like a little bit of a ringing. So typically for me, it's backwards. I'll hear spirit guides over here, but I'll also hear like dead people this way. I've known mediums who have it that it's the other. So it doesn't really matter how you perceive it. What I would say is be mindful of where it's at, where sometimes you'll notice it here, and then I'll notice it kind of bounce around where something's actually moving. That could also be to it. As much as, Jackie, you've gone through this year with spiritual growth, when I talked earlier about everybody's chakras getting kind of blown open, you could also be coming into new sensitivities, which aren't going to go away. So hopefully you can kind of figure that one out. Helen, my future wife, I love you. You're hilarious. Donna, Been a crazy week. My dad has been sick, just moved in. He is super anxious and can't sleep. He keeps saying, I don't want to die alone. What crystals will help him? All right, Donna. So when it comes to this one, I'm going to say the same thing. The white howlite, it's wonderful. It's very calming. And so he's going to have more anxiety rather than fear, which either way, it's kind of the same. So what I would do is I'd recommend getting him something for the root chakra to help keep him grounded. The reds, the blacks, the browns, the fossils, all of those kind of resonate with the root chakra. From there, when it comes to what I would say is if you can find angelite, it is a very light blue stone, very soft in color, very soft in texture. That is one that I use when I'm wanting to communicate more so with spirits or spirit guides. Blue kyanite is typically the one I'm going to go for myself. But the blue kyanite, there's blue lapis, and then the angelite, I think would all three be good options for you to consider, just because once people start to cross over, what I have witnessed is they start to see these interdimensional beings. And I remember one person on her last day of life, she looked over to a corner and she sat back and she just blurted out, "Who are you and why are you here?" And I remember looking over and I'm like, what does she see? And she just stared. And then she's like, she kind of nodded like, okay, I'm okay. So if you can assure him that he isn't going to be alone. It's a weird concept for people to pick up on, but the in the work of mediumship, when I've connected with people, they are always surrounded by loved ones. They have their parents, they have their siblings, anybody who's crossed over ahead of them. It's like they are literally there waiting. And so that might not be something that he's going to want to hear. But if you can use a couple crystals to kind of energetically open him up to having the experiences, it's probably going to help calm him down, especially if he has something or even a figure that looks like his mother, for example, that would be very calming for him. So even if he doesn't know that they're there, I would be the one to kind of like slip them under his bed or somewhere that he's going to be, because it's just a little stuff. When you know that somebody's kind of at the end of the road, you want it to be peaceful. You want it to be relaxing for them. So, they don't have to be aware of what you're doing just because you don't want to raise the anxiety. But if you can set the intention, I think this is going to help. And then you'll know that you at least did what you could. Mary, I'm exhausted constantly. Are there any crystals that can help? I'm definitely able to sleep, so that's not it. When it comes to being exhausted, my personal go-to is the red tiger eye. Tiger's eye in general, willpower, self-esteem, confidence, energy. The red tiger eye, I see helping people kind of give them the motivation. Now, a lot of times I think motivation is total bullshit. It's literally a mind frame where people that are waiting to be motivated, you're really never going to be motivated. You just kind of have to start. When you're low on energy or kind of lethargic feeling, you're not going to be motivated. You're not going to have the energy. So I would consider that one. I know at the store we've got some of the tumbled stones. I know I mentioned earlier the carnelian. It's one of probably the top 10 crystals that I would recommend that everybody has because it has so many different uses. Carnelian is kind of an upper, which means it's going to energize you. So it kind of goes like with the red tiger eye. Those are the two that get me. I would also challenge you, Mary, to tap into your emotion mind and see if there's anything specifically grief, recent loss, anything like that that is literally kind of taking your life force energy, because these type of life changes, they're draining. Whether people go through a breakup, they're usually draining, or in some cases they feel 10 times better if it was a situation that wasn't helping them. So I would say try those guys, but then definitely look into your mind, because it's like you probably have energy being burnt in the background, and that's kind of taking from your ability to use the energy in person, if that makes sense. So see what you can do there. Otherwise, obviously sticking with the reds, blacks, grounding, getting more grounded. See if that helps, and then we'll go from there. So, Carol, we're just following up on previous, and there I go. I scrolled too far and I lost my place. All right, we got Noel. How often do you need to charge your crystals, and is there an easier way than waiting for a full moon? So, good question. I like to cleanse and charge the crystals that I use for my readings, which are here, once a month, and I do charge them under the full moon. If I have a session that if I have a reading and I'm just like, okay, what was this? I will literally try to cleanse them with Palo Santo in between, or I will do it just to kind of give them a fresh start to kind of connect my connection with spirit. The crystals that people wear, if you want like a bracelet, that's one of those things where if life is really good, just keep wearing it. But if you have a week where there's negative or you're struggling or you're emotional, the vibration of that is probably going to be affected. Therefore, you don't want to carry that with you. So you can use selenite, which is, I'm looking at my desk here and I have a piece to show you, very abundant. It is a white, it's also known as gypsum. The selenite is wonderful. It vibrates higher if you were to measure it than the rest of crystals. So the way I like to explain this is it's almost like if you were to have a heart issue and the doctor's going to shock you, it resets it. So let's say your vibration of your amethyst gets messed up because you had a week of funeral and visitation and family. You want to kind of cleanse that. So you put that on something that vibrates higher and it kind of just clears out anything that would be a lower vibe. If you use the selenite, people will literally just put it on there for a day. I'm obviously a plant person. You can put the crystals on top of the soil with any of your house plants. What I see with plants is they have an auric field where the energy continues to kind of go in circles. So what happens when you put the crystal there, they're literally cleansing it with their life force energy. The selenite, what I picture, is just kind of like boom, where it just doesn't give anything really the chance to hold on and then it gets kind of reset. You cannot recharge them too much. You can't, if you want to recharge your bracelets or your stones that you're carrying with you every day, do whatever you are inclined to do so. If you have some that you're like, you know what, this needs charge and cleanse, but this one doesn't, listen to yourself. The other method, so when it comes to charging, that's what I would do, either like the house plants or the selenite or the full moon. If you were talking cleansing, there's all kinds of different ways to cleanse a crystal. You can use the Palo Santo, you can sage, smudge with any other plant material that's your favorite. You can put it on top of sea salt. You can literally cleanse it in stream water. Really, there's a lot more opportunity there. When it comes to charging, I think that's going to be your best bet, is just the selenite, full moon, or houseplants. Montana, first time here. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. My question is, am I able to have more children? So in this case, this is one of those kind of personal questions that I would have to save for an individual reading. I'm not tapped in or working with your energy, so if I were to spit anything out, I can't be certain or sure that that message would be for you. Chelsea, you think a spirit guide said to pursue Reiki. So going back up to what I probably misinterpreted earlier, if your throat chakra is beginning to open because you're speaking your truth, you're telling it like it is, you're not holding it in, and your throat's getting more balanced, clairaudience, which comes from the ears, is when you're actually going to hear spirit or hear your spirit guides. I have a friend of mine, I can hear her spirit guide, and it cracks me up because her personality is kind of like my friend's. However, it's this Viking character where it's just hilarious because she's kind of a drunk. But anyway, if you're noticing your spirit guides or you think that's what this is, I'm going to tell you, do not question it. When it comes to learning about Reiki, there's a few people locally that are super passionate about teaching it. You can message me. Um, I'd be happy to send you the links where it's a type of, for those of you who aren't familiar, it is using source energy to basically, you go through attunements, which enables you to channel this energy, which you can then use to work on other people to initiate healing in both or all three the spiritual, mental, and physical aspects of the body. Um, it's one of those things that's really difficult for me to describe because it's like I had to have my own experience with Reiki before I was like, oh my gosh. So I recommend a lot of people at least try it once, let them have the experience for themselves, and then kind of go from there. I have a friend, her name is Diane. She is a wonderful Reiki master and very passionate about teaching. And so she's able to, I go to her for work, and it's always interesting what she's able to kind of follow up with after the reading. I'm like, well, that coincides with how I'm feeling, where my life is at. It's a really neat take. So if you feel that you're kind of the empath, or you're here to help, or you want to be a healer, I'm totally going to encourage you to look more into it. But I will also tell you that if you start to dive in and you're like, I don't know, this isn't me, stop. Follow your curiosity. When I went through my awakening, I was drawn to all kinds of stuff. You dive into it, and then you're like, this isn't my truth. So I always encourage people, find what resonates with you, but the only way to find it is to literally follow your curiosity. You'll find stuff you don't like, but you'll also find stuff that really resonates. So give that a shot. Um, Misty, I recently lost a fiance, and I'm having a lot of trouble getting to sleep and staying asleep. Do you have any suggestions? Considering that you've got grief on top of 2020, it's interesting to me how much sleep has been probably the number one complaint that I have heard this year, where people that do not have anxiety are having anxiety. People that do not typically have depression are struggling with emotions that they're like, I don't understand this. It's because so much is taking place this year that we've never experienced. And because of that, your ego doesn't really know how to respond. So when it comes to sleep issues, really figure out, I always encourage people, find out what's literally keeping you up at night. However, I went through this personally back in March where I didn't feel anxious. I was in a good shape. I kept talking to myself like, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm looking forward to the future. I have a roof, I have food, like I have no reason to worry. But when I would wake up, it would be like literally 10 times a night where I had to kind of start pulling out all my own tricks and all my own stuff to try to figure out what would help me rest. It's a frustrating thing to go through, but what I would encourage you to try is meditating before you go to bed. I like to meditate in the bathtub because it's like a 2-for-1 where I'm getting my body relaxed and my mind relaxed. And then usually when I do that, I sleep like a rock that night. Considering that you've went through such a large life change on top of everything else going around, be patient with yourself. Patience. It might be frustrating. So I'll tell you the same thing that I recommended earlier. I would go for the white howlite, but I'm also going to recommend that you try black onyx as a crystal because black onyx specifically is my go-to for anybody struggling with grief. Grief, for the rest of you, isn't always associated with loss. It can be in an abusive relationship or a relationship that you're not happy in, losing a relationship, losing a pet, losing a job, losing a coworker, having somebody move. There's all types of different grief. So it's really interesting how grief messes with the mind. However, that black onyx also resonates with the root chakra, which brings you back kind of in that present moment where the energy that you'll be holding isn't looking so much forward, which anxious, or backwards, which causes a depression. So there's a couple things that might help out to you. Dawn, I tell you, anytime somebody comes to me with a question of should I do this or should I not? Should I leave him? Should I not? I'm going to look at you and say, if you're going to sit there and question it, I'm going to question it. I'm going to have a difficult time encouraging you to do something if you're also hesitating. Because if you're hesitating, that tells me there's logical reason that you're holding back. Now, I love my dog, so it's one of those things. I think pets add a lot of value to home. I know how much my dog helps me personally, so I would definitely never persuade you to not get that. I know for me, I really struggled. Should I get a dog? Should I not? Should I? Shouldn't I? And so nobody could make that decision for me. Once I did, then I was able to kind of go with the rest. If I told you to get the cat, and then this cat ends up being literally your biggest nightmare, I don't want you to hold resentment against me because you have a reason to blame me for a decision that you still made. So I kind of tiptoe around those questions. However, I know that you're an animal lover. I don't see this doing a whole lot of harm for you. So if it feels right and it brings you joy, but if you're sitting there fighting yourself, don't do it. There's other cats out there down the road. When it's time, you'll know. Schumann resonance. I love how that two words could spark a lot of questions. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with what the Schumann resonance is, it is basically the heartbeat of the earth. It is the frequency, the current state of the vibration. And so what happens, I want to say back in maybe like 2010, I could be wrong on this, back in the early 2000s is when they actually started measuring or charting this frequency. And so the very first time that they documented a huge spike in the vibration was right after 9/11, where our country and everybody around the world was kind of stunned by what happened. Everybody's heart chakras open, and there was a lot of empathy. There was a lot of compassion, a lot of grief for extending family, a lot of people who just, a lot of people, it hurt. So what happened there, literally all of the extra emotion, the love, the compassion, it raised Earth's frequency to where that was the first time they saw it spike. And then I know that it was kind of an up and down. However, this March, when the quarantine happened, and then there was a worldwide meditation. It was plastered all over Facebook, like get together 7 p.m. We're going to meditate for global healing and set the intention. And we're all going to do this together and put our energy out there. Literally the next day, the chart comes out, and it was like this graph was off the charts, where it kind of proves as people are going through their spiritual awakenings, as humans, we're vibing higher. Therefore, our existence is affecting the vibration of the earth. It's also raising its vibration. The Schumann resonance is also to blame for some of those headaches, the fibro pain that I mentioned earlier when I talk about like the energy that people are feeling, the ringing in the ears. That could be another reason. It's fascinating, but for the last few months, honestly, since March, it seems like maybe once a week, one couple times a week, it just skyrockets. And I have learned to notice how I feel the day after there's a big spike. I get this weird kind of headache. I just feel off. I can still function, but it's like I'm not quite myself. And so once I was able to determine that's how I felt, now I'll get up and be like, let's look at the graph. I'll pull it up and I'm just like, I'll be damned. Like it's fascinating to watch. And so those of you who are new to the Schumann resonance, I would totally, there's a few Facebook pages where people, they pay to have the app. They every day can check it. These people upload the images from the app. So find on Facebook, there's all kinds of stuff. I find it fascinating. And so when people are able to see how our frequency is affecting the earth, it kind of makes you want to do more good, especially when you can witness what goes out is affecting everybody. So I hope that answers your statement on Schumann resonance there. Kristen, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I feel my body vibrating. Should I do anything when this happens? Is it good to communicate with a spiritual team, or why does it happen? So when it comes to vibrating, you are probably way more empathic, or your heart chakra, the ability to feel, is probably your predominant psychic ability. There are people that I will hand a crystal and like, do you feel that? And they're just like looking at it, like waiting, like, nope. And I think some people that are sensitive, they feel like, literally they feel, it's like moldavite, for example. When I hold moldavite, I feel like a pulse. It's like boosh, boosh. One of my helpers, for example, I remember teaching her, it's like, okay, if you hold it, you're not going to, she's expecting like she's going to close her hand and feel it like shaking, where it's way more subtle to most people. If you feel the vibration in your body, again, this could be the Schumann resonance for one, especially if it's waking you up out of your sleep. It could be a lot of different things. Dietary, for example, if there's a frequency that's going in your body and you're sensitive to how things feel, and you're attuned to more vibe or vibration, that would trigger it. If spirits are coming around, that could trigger it. It's a shift. You'd have to really know. It's difficult for me to explain because I don't feel typically the vibration. I feel more emotion. So it's stuff like that I'm like, I'm not the empath. And so people that are, they're the ones that usually talk about feeling more of the vibration and stuff. So when that happens, definitely if it alarms you or you're scared, ask for protection. It's probably something negative. But if it's more like, what is this? I'm totally going to advise you to call on your spiritual team, whether that be your guides that you work with, whether you just want to call God, let him send you the people. You ask them for clarity. So they might send you answers in a dream state, but by all means, your guides are here to help you. They come to Earth to help you through these things. So they're always here for you. Never hesitate to lean on them. Like they will not get burnt out. They're like sitting here like waiting. So hopefully that helps you out there. Andrea, I was wondering, I have had numerous spine surgeries and now going through stomach issues. What can I do to help my body feel better? So, Andrea, when people have spinal injuries or there's injuries with bone, medical intervention can come in. They can do what they can to fix. And then sometimes people experience, which would kind of be like a side effect where things are kind of different. Not knowing as far as how your body physically feels, there's a stone called aragonite, ARA, which is great for teeth, bones, healing the bone system. When it comes to digestive issues, that's all going to come from your solar plexus. So if your physical body being in pain is debilitating your ability to feel normal, and you're beating up on yourself, you're losing your confidence, your self-esteem's going down the drain. There's a lot of other questions, if it was face-to-face, that I would ask you without putting your business on blast. I don't want to do that. So typically, citrine is my number one go-to for solar plexus. It's with carnelian, kind of in that group of top 10 that I think everybody's going to benefit from. The citrine kind of helps with the solar plexus, whether it be physical and emotional. So if we don't really know where to target, I'd go that direction. I'm also thinking that you could benefit, look into yellow quartz or yellow jasper, and then take those three, see what jumps out to you. And if there's one that you're like, hey, kind of excited about, go for that one. It's kind of like it's speaking to you. Anything associated with the back, the spine, or lower back, that all for me is tied to the root chakra. So I would also consider hunting for reds, blacks, browns, or fossils. See what you're drawn to. Don't feel like you have to start with a whole bunch all at once. I recommend just getting a couple, because if you're not one to physically feel that vibration, carry it for a week. You will then notice how you feel different. You'll notice a lot of times that's what I have to do. I have to carry something for a week or so before I'm able to really kind of like, wow, notice. But there are some stuff where I'm like, boom, when I need grounded, I go for my hematite. That just like puts things in its stop. Going into readings, I go for the kyanite, and that just kind of opens me up. So you kind of got to know how things affect you. But I would consider that organite, and then something for the root chakra. And then I think I threw out the citrine, yellow jasper, and yellow quartz for you. See how that does you. All right, Nate, I carry moldavite every day. Any crystal that I should carry along with it for vibrational raising or maintaining? I like wearing my meteorite. This is one that I wear pretty much every day. I've worn it for over a year now, where everything, so Nate, for me, the moldavite is kind of like a transformational stone, where it was made instantly under this transformation. And so the people that I see carrying it, they're going through big life changes, transformation. It's usually very positive, where you're just like totally doing it, or people that go for it, they kind of need the push to kind of help them transform. When it comes to raising that vibration, there is it's called phenakite. It's Phen, phenakite, where I think that is one of the highest vibrational stones that you're going to find. It's unusual to come across. You'll find it probably in like a small, rough piece. The first time I came across it, I looked at it like, what is this? Like, this is some super fancy, like rare, whatever. But then I held it and I'm like, oh. And for me, it was like I felt everything in my face, chakra wise, open. Third eye, crown, everything was like tingle open. So if you like that, as far as maintaining it, there's not a whole lot, in my opinion, that you're going to do wrong. I know some people are going to disagree with that. So for me, if you're wanting to kind of maintain, I would do the selenite just to kind of help keep it cleansed and charged. Whatever you're going to use, you want to make sure that it is also a high vibe stone. That way, you know that they can kind of have this like symbiotic relationship. So hopefully that took care of you. Marcy, what do I think of Bigfoot, fairies, etc., and are they real? Yes, 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 and yes. So we're going to talk about Bigfoot first. Bigfoot is an interdimensional being. We on Earth, we are having a 3D experience, a three-dimensional world. Everybody that reads these spiritual articles talk about how Earth is upgrading to the next G, or 5G is the film, whether we're going to like the fourth dimension, but whether it be, I want to say Bigfoot is like seventh dimension. I think aliens are like ninth dimension. So these interdimensional beings, they can be here, but they can boom, transport, almost like time travel, not really time traveling, but space travel, that they can transport to a different dimension. And so all of these reports, there's enough science out there that they cannot squash the existence of Bigfoot. There have been too many accounts of hair that have been found that does not match any lab test for any known animal on Earth. And so when we find these pieces of evidence, I'm like, you can't make that up. But then there's the argument, well, where are the bones? Where are the bodies? How come we see them and then how come they're gone? Well, literally because they're interdimensional. They don't die here. I don't know. I think they come here for a reason. We don't know what that reason is yet. I don't think there's nothing malicious. If I were to see one, I'm completely honest, I would probably not know how to react. I would initially be shocked, and then I would probably be scared. Scared for the only reason that I'm witnessing something that it's like 2020 that the ego doesn't know how to respond to. It's like the first time I seen a UFO, I was like, uh, uh, and then it didn't. I was in the mountains, and I'm like, this is the weirdest place to be alone and to see a UFO and to watch this thing. So, um, Bigfoot, yes. Fairies, very interesting thing. So, fairies, um, they kind of take care of nature. So, um, their jobs, you're going to find fairies, people that have houseplants, in the forest, the woods. They're very, it's kind of like they're nature's little helpers. And so they're the way that they work with us, people that are very drawn to fairies, obviously they believe in them, but you notice the trend. There's also the very woodsy, the forest type atmosphere, how they're depicted. Um, in my own experience, when I started meeting fairies in guided meditations or literally just blank meditations, I would hear these like giggles. And once I talked to other people about my experience, they had the same thing. And I'm like, okay, that's definitely fairies. So once I had these experiences in a meditation, next time I was in Colorado in the mountains, I'm like, we're just going to kind of hone in and see. And then every once in a while, I would hear almost like a childlike, playful giggle. And you turn, and then as fast as you would hear it, obviously there's nothing. And then you'd hear it over here. And it's like, for me, they're very playful. But they're here to take care of Earth, they're taking care of nature. It's like they're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I picture them literally like tending to the mushrooms, tending to the mycelium, tending to the ecosystem that keeps the forest thriving. Um, it's like they do what man wishes we could do with the forest. A lot of times we think we're helping, and then we add to an environment, and then the ecosystem gets thrown out of whack. So that's my take on those guys. As far as the aliens, I know you didn't ask, but that goes with the etc. There's not a lot anymore that I don't believe in. There are people that I will tell you I don't believe in, but when it comes to the spiritual realm, the longer and the more that I do this type of work and the more personal experiences that I have, the more that I feel like there is for me to learn, because there's so much more out there than I can even comprehend. And so it's really neat. But by all means, keep an open mind. The more that you're open to stuff, the more that stuff will actually reveal itself. One of my coworkers actually bought a house plant like 2 weeks ago, and she went home, she painted the clay pot for the fairies, and then she wanted to set up a hidden camera on a GoPro and see if she could get any kind of orb or any kind of movement or anything kind of unexplainable to happen. And so I'm excited to see what she comes up with there. So good question there. Chelsea, crystals for a hip surgery, recovery for her mom. So when it comes to surgical procedures, hips, the waist, all of that, root chakra. If there's anything that she likes that falls in line with that red, the black, with the bones, I really like the argonite. It's a brown argonite. There's like stripes on it. That is always my go-to. The other one that I just pictured is called tree agate, where the Native American shaman would actually use the tree agate to heal the physical body anytime that they suspected that there was an issue associated with something in the physical body that resembled tree branches. So the nervous system, the blood vessels, and the skeletal system. So I would say those two, and then something grounding, trust your instinct, if you're going to look to see whatever jumps out to you for her. Debbie, when do you feel COVID will be under control, and when, and well, things getting back to normal? So this is one, what really frustrated me in March is the end of February, even January, when COVID started becoming a concern for a lot of people globally. I didn't think anything of it. I'll be the first to admit I was 150% wrong. I'm human too. So I'm also affected by the pandemic. So just like people, we can't read for ourselves. I can't read for the people that are in my personal life. Spirit blocks us. And so if I were to really try to see if there was an end to this, I think we're going to see it's got to run its course. I knew that there would be a second wave come fall, that this was no way just going to be a spring thing where a quarantine would help. And then I'm like, no, there's going to be the second wave. It'll probably be worse than the first. This virus, it's here, it's traveling, it's everywhere. And so at this point, I don't think that there's going to be a way to really slow it down. It's, in my opinion, something that everybody is going to end up getting at one point or another. So there's a lot of people that have already been affected by it that have no idea. And so they are literally still living in fear, even though their body's already battled this. I think probably for the next month and a half, there's going to be a lot of attention on it, a lot of focus on it, a lot of fear. As far as things getting back to normal, I honestly think that this changed the way a lot of things are going to be done for the future. I think it's still going to be a while. I know that there are a lot of events that people want to plan for next year, but there's so much that's up in the air even for next year where people, artists, entertainers are having a hard time committing to a date, knowing that there has to be a contingency date just in case that it doesn't work out. And so there's so much up in the air. I would like to say that it's going to start slowing down, but it's probably not going to happen during the winter. I think when this kind of coincides with the flu season, even if people have the flu, they're going to suspect that it's something else. And so I think for the rest of this year, going into the first couple months of next year, I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot different. People are learning to adapt. And so people, all of this plastic that you see put up, or they're wanting to put dividers, I don't see that changing really honestly anytime soon, because the way that viruses can mutate, it's still new. And now that this is here, there could be a mutation that turns around and does the same thing because nobody's immune. So it's a really difficult thing to answer because I'm going to be affected by it too. Therefore, I'm kind of blocked from being able to have spirit be like, nope, come January, we're done. I'm in the same boat. I don't want to see that, but I just don't see a whole lot changing over the next 3 to 4 months. John, I've been whisked away as my head hits the pillow, dealing with demons. I feel in charge. They let me know when they are near. Also seen tons of silhouettes, lots of sizes, and I'm in a safe zone. So in this case, if you're having a lot of negative, I'm going to tell you, smudge like hell. Set the intention. If you're not here for my greatest good, get out. Leave me alone. This is my space. The more energy that you give them, such as being fearful or talking about them, gives them more energy to feed off of. I would totally cleanse your space like no other. And then black tourmaline, hella protective. When it comes to, I would also recommend a white candle. It doesn't have to be scented. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's kind of like honoring the protective white light and Holy Spirit. You light that candle. You ask that God, angel, spirit guides, whatever your faith lies in, to protect you. You will see a difference. Aside from that, there's you could use salt, like put salt kind of in your doorways. I don't think that this is something that's either coming and going. I think it recognizes that you are aware, and therefore it's kind of like anytime a spirit catches my attention, if I'm out in public, I don't even acknowledge it, because as soon as I do, they're like, hey, he can hear me. Hey, I want to talk to my mom. I want this, I want that. I'm like, leave me alone. Like, I want my bananas. Leave me alone. So, I would just try to ignore it. And next time you do see these, pray, God, protect me, get rid of this. Anything that is higher vibrational, these guys aren't going to stand a chance. And then go from there. Nate, you loving on my plants. I got to say thank you. I literally have over 50 potted plants, and they are everywhere, and it brings me a lot of joy. I appreciate it. Helen. Let's see. Robin. Oh, I just scrolled, and then I lost my spot. All right, Robin. Do we have the same spirit guides our entire life, or do we get different ones as we grow? That is an awesome question. So, what I see or what I connect with when working with people, usually I get about 3 or 4. So for me personally, I have my main guide. She's kind of like my right hand man. Then I have when I first met him, all he would show me was literally his hands like this, and it was extremely confusing because I'm like, okay, what is this? Or he'd show me like something in the hands. I did a few different guided meditations. Kelly Miller has a guided meditation to meet your spirit guide. I'm like, aha, I'm going to do this. We're gonna show this guy what's up. When I met him, literally, he turned around and he had no face, and I'm like, come on. And then I realized his only purpose for me is when I'm doing a reading. He will show me what I need to see. And so once I started seeing this in my readings, I'm like, huh, that's when he comes around. I had never met him before I started doing readings. There was another guide, I call him Garrett, where when I've been sick or had health issues, there's this guy who literally looks like a personal trainer. He is ripped to all get up, and I'm just like, oh, I thought maybe you were gonna, anyway. It's kind of when he comes around, I'm like, okay, what am I not eating right? What am I not doing right? Why is he here to help my physical body? So I usually think that people have probably 2 or 3, sometimes 4 that are with them pretty much from start to finish. But let's just say you've got a guide that came with you to, you're going to go through a really tough hardship. That might be their only purpose for you in this life, to help you through that. But they will still kind of come and go. I would say a lot of people probably have like 7, 8, 9 guides. The main ones you're going to work with all the time. The others just kind of come when they've got a job to do. Hope that makes sense to you. As far as getting different ones, I have met people who are like, can I please just get a different guide because Hildy's drunk, for example, or it's one of those, you signed up for this. They're with you, you're bonded, you're either spirits on a soul plane, you've either done past lives together, you're a group, there is no separating. Shelly is asking, CBD helps with anxiety. I take it at night. It's a lifesaver with anxiety and arthritis. So that's not a question. However, for those of you that were asking about sleep or anxiety, for example, give CBD a shot. We have customers at the store. I work at Awakenings. For those of you who might not know me from there, we sell CBD, and we've got a couple different varieties, but we have a couple PM options where I have seen people get off Ambien. I've seen people get off other sleep aids and actually sleep better, having quality sleep. CBD is kind of like a smart oil where if Shelly wants to take it for anxiety and sleep, and it helps her, and somebody else wants to take it for a completely different reason. When you take CBD, it goes into the body, it goes through the blood-brain barrier, it hits the brain. There's this cute little system in the brain that knows exactly what to do with it, called the endocannabinoid system. When it gets there, it knows where to send it. And so it's kind of like this smart oil. You fuel that little center in the body, then the body knows what to do with it. It's just fascinating. Let's see, Carol. I meditate in a pink Himalayan salt bath, and you also sleep better. So it's kind of what I was saying. People that are looking for ways to relax at night, salt baths are amazing for resetting the physical body. It's kind of like, I'm an ocean person. I love the water. And so it's like, for me, a salt bath is the closest thing that I'm going to get to the ocean. However, salt water or Himalayan salt, it helps cut cords. It helps detox the physical body. So it is a win-win situation all around. Lisa, thank you. if you follow me on Facebook, I'm going to keep doing these videos once a month. And then as I'm kind of working on the next stuff going forward, I want to do more webinars and stuff like that. So if there is stuff that you guys want to learn to where I could spend an hour talking about one topic, let me know. Where I overthink a lot of this kind of stuff and then I forget where I was at when I started learning. And so there's people on all levels that want to learn. And so it's like, look, if I'm going to put myself out there to teach or to share the knowledge that I've learned, what do you want to learn? Let me know. Tips to help meditate. So meditation, a lot of people have it mixed up. They think that you're going to have to sit there with your legs crossed in the most uncomfortable position with your hands sitting all weird and fingers and got to be all perfect. No, there are hundreds of ways of meditating where if you look at the proper, like what you would see depicted on an image for meditation, that's like expert level. I'm not even going to try to pretend to get you to believe that that's how I meditate. When I meditate, I'm walking my dog. And I am the point of meditation, you're never going to have a quiet mind. The point of meditating is to allow your thoughts to come into your mind and to not let them control you. So if you were to sit down, you'd be like, oh, I got to do the laundry. Oh, I got to do this. That's when you're like, okay, nope, I'm just going to meditate. We'll do laundry in 5 minutes. We'll do this later. For me, when I'm walking and I'll think of something and I'm guilty, I'll pull my phone out. I'm like, nope, just put it back. I turn to the environment and to bring me kind of back to where I'm at. I'm like, oh, green grass, new leaf on a tree, or that grew. I start calling out the things that I see because that brings me back into the present moment. So when you're in that present moment, that is where you will be opened up to getting communication with your spirit guides, spirit stuff like that. But you got to be grounded. And so meditating helps people get grounded, but so many people give up because it's like forcing something that's not natural. One of my other most favorite ways to meditate that I like to recommend to people is cooking. I love to cook. I love to be in the kitchen. So when I make soup, literally, I'm like, just get lost in it. And it's when you're just like, wow, cool. When you're not thinking of anything else, that's meditation. You will have insight fly into your mind. You will have answers shown to you. And it's like, why am I thinking of this? It's when you get yourself in a place of allowance, you will see the magic happen. So I think that's awesome. Donna is asking if Reiki would help with her dad's anxiety and not being able to sleep. Honestly, yes. So if your father was not able to leave where he's at because of a health situation, Reiki can also be done at a distance. They call it transcending time and space. So people that I've talked to my Diane, before. I'm like, not feeling so great today. Like, if you can't get me in, they can do stuff at a distance. And I find it absolutely fascinating. Or I've talked to people who had distant sessions. This is one of those things, you would still want to have his permission. It's like, I can't read somebody without you giving me consent. Otherwise, people that do that, they're fueling their ego. And they're just like, oh, look at me and look what I know. I'm like, oh, first of all, I didn't even say you could. So you're serving your own self. You're serving ego, not trying to help me. Anyway, you'd probably want to let him know, like, hey, we're going to try something different. Just close your eyes, relax. And I've got somebody who's, in Omaha that's going to just pray for you. And then see how that works. Reiki is just wonderful at clearing things out. And so at this point, anything that you can do to get him calmer, more comfortable, at peace, that's what we're going to go for. When it comes to Dawn's question, several life-changing losses in the last few years, what would you suggest for grief healing? You kind of just have to honor the way that you feel. Grief is a process. It's a roller coaster. There's like 5 main phases to grief. So you're going to be hurt. You're going to be angry. You kind of have to go through the emotions, honor how you feel. What I tell people, the most amazing thing that you can do is recognize the signs. Yes, losing someone is tough, but when somebody comes around and you see the sign every single day, you realize you didn't really lose them. You lost the humanness but they're still here. They're still with you. They are not far. And so people that really struggle with the grief, they're so fixated on the pain that there could literally be a sign like right here. But when they're focused on the pain, focused on the grief, they don't see the sign. So ask for insight, ask for stuff, ask for the signs. But when it comes to grief, it's just kind of a process. You got to want to move forward. Alexis is asking, how could I possibly open my third eye even more and have it be more powerful? So that is one of those, it's kind of an egoic statement because chakras aren't going to have more power or more, in order for you, I would exercise, it's just, they're going to be like muscles, for example. So people that have never seen images, they've never seen spirit, they've never had their third eye and want to dive in, I'm like, start with your predominant psychic ability first. So if you know that you're the seer and that you want to work on seeing more or exercise that ability, then by all means, do more visual guided meditations, do more artistic stuff. So picture something and then try to create something. Or if you're creative and you're getting pictures, there's a few stones that you could go to. Like I said earlier, I like the kyanite. I like the blue calcite's another one that I didn't recognize or didn't mention earlier. But as far as exercising the third eye, the more you use it, the more easy it will be to access that, if that makes sense. Brianne, reptilians, absolutely. They are here. They are exactly who you think they are. I do not believe that the conspiracies are wrong. There's enough visual evidence. There's enough stuff that's unexplained. I was very questionable about the reptilians at first. And then, like I said, the more that I learned, the more that I'm like, oh my gosh. So I think reptilians are kind of like modern day aliens. They are already here. So I'm going to wrap this up, guys. There's a couple more questions here that I didn't get to. Let's see if I can plow through a couple more of these. Can meditation really work to bring you a whole different level? Absolutely. So anybody wanting to learn psychic abilities, you have to learn to meditate because my mind can literally be like a monkey swinging through the trees. And if you can't learn to meditate and can't learn to control those thoughts, you'll get random weird stuff and not know what to do with it. Meditation, if you can't meditate or you're not meditating or you're not willing to meditate, I would tell you you're not ready to learn how to exercise your psychic abilities. Let's see, is there anything else here? How about children talking about previous lives? You know what, Marcy? That's fascinating because I've had a couple customers where literally their kid is talking about something and then they were able to Google this story or look up and connect names or people will talk about a soup that they want and the parents were like, what in the heck is this? It's not anything they've ever mentioned. The kid can't read. And then literally they find out it's like some foreign dish and they're like, oh my gosh. I firmly believe that children, they are born knowing so much more. As they age, as the brain develops, it's like some of that stuff gets, I would not want to remember all of my past lives. I would not want to have access to a lot of that because I would start getting confused. Was that this life? Was that last life? But the children that talk about it, it's no different than the children that are born mediums where they're talking about their grandfather and what they did and they've never met the man. So I find it absolutely fascinating. So, alrighty guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I've got the next couple planned out for November and December. Think about what questions you guys want to ask. In the meantime, I thank you guys all for participating, for watching, for giving me your time. This is something that I enjoyed getting to do, so I hope you guys join me next round. And then if you follow me on Facebook, Like I said, feel free to message me if there are workshops that you would be interested in attending, or a lot of stuff is all going to be done YouTube, virtual, or things that at a distance. But if there's anything I can do, by all means, let me know. Otherwise, thank you for joining and have a good one. Bye, guys.